Chair Samaro?
Yes. The next item is a request of Geoffrey Killebrew to speak to the commission on, to discuss past and present rules and regulations on busking and vending in city parks.
Good evening. My name is Geoffrey Killebrew, and I'm a resident and father of two here in Worcester. I've been a vendor at Elm Park off and on since 2018, operating under the name of Eden Slime Sundays and Kid Car Rides. My offerings include ice cream, snacks, drinks, hot dogs, and renting out toy cars for kids to drive. Additionally, I offer make and take activities, play cultural music, and offer instruments for the community to play along. I won the 2023 concession and novelty bid to return as a vendor at Elm Park. I'm also president of Fam Jam Event Group, 501c3. Our mission is to host events that support artists and entrepreneurs from historically redlined communities and bring awareness to other organizations that serve youth and families. Because of the recent discriminatory practices, inequitable processes, antiquated rules, ordinances, and regulations regarding street vending and performing, I started a community initiative under my nonprofit called Worcester Renaissance Project. My intention is to work with city officials towards equity and transparency for street vendors and performers. This is in alignment with 2.4.g of Worcester's Cultural Development Plan under the purview of Worcester's Cultural Development Division, Department of Public Works, and DPW. Then develop a new vendor and performer applicants, educate them on the process of starting a business as a street vendor or performer, and get them placed in high foot traffic areas throughout Worcester to impact tourism and benefit from current gentrification. This initiative serves as both an economic and cultural development plan, revitalizing our city streets and attracting tourists from around the world. My hope is to gain clarity by discussing the past, present, and future rules and regulations regarding street vending and street performance, outlining some of the challenges that I've experienced, offer solutions, and hopefully resulting in an agreement to develop a MOU with the Parks Department for our Fam Jam's Worcester Renaissance Project. So in interest of time tonight, we want to start with some actionable requests to see what the processes are to make changes. To start with, I wanted to know, what is the process to amend our current regulations for hawkers and peddlers license to include approval of youth as young as 14 years old with a work permit provided by the superintendent's office? When I compared our application process to Boston, they are able to get youth are able to get their license with a work permit. And then so I approached our superintendent's office, and they said that they would be willing to participate with the project and do that. When I spoke to our police department, they don't have a precedent for young applicants. They said usually there are just adults who do, and otherwise they might be willing to sign off if a teen as young as 17 had a parent there, but otherwise they don't have a precedent for this.
So are you asking for somebody 14 years old to be able to apply for a permit and be a busker?
A busker or a vendor, yep. And so my because they don't have a precedent for it at the police station, wanted to know what is the process to have that added to their printed documents for people to apply.
So, just a quick internet search, hawkers and peddlers license, the state of Massachusetts has an executive office of economic development. They have a division of standards, and according to them, anything to do with the hawkers and peddlers license is handled by the police department.
So I speak back. So what happened was I had one of the city councilors put that on a petition, and I'm waiting to hear what the follow-up is. I guess would be from the police department. But I just wanted to, for one, put that on public record, but also find out if you did have any information on what should happen for that, the processes.
Doesn't sound like that falls in our purview.
Okay, all right. Next question, what is the process to amend the regulation which requires vendors to be out of the parks at dusk to 9 p.m. regardless of the season? This year would be the first year that dusk regulation was enforced. I've had permits in the past that went to, well, I have it late, it should be in the minutes that you have in the agenda item. But what is the process? Because the last time I was here, I was told that it wasn't under the Parks Department's purview, that it's a state thing, that dusk is the time. So my question is, what is the process to have that changed?
Rob, would that fall under us? Or is that under the police or the state where it's a busking issue?
So our permitting for vendors is a bid process through purchasing, and we have set the timeframe for those. So that would come through the commission if the commission so chose to make those changes, to the permit application. We have left it at. We've actually changed it to sunset for this coming year as of right now, working through some of our paperwork on that, looking to have that out to bid sometime in the near future. But the commission would be able to make a decision on that to say you want to either extend or reduce.
Okay, so just because for two things, 2 points. The last time that I was here, I was told that it wasn't under the purview of the Parks Department, that it was a state regulation that required dusk. So just wanted to reiterate that. But also being a vendor at Elm Park, because of the change of the season, peak times for sales are right in the evening. So right at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or when typically we may see as this past fall is dusk. We're losing out on sales opportunities, as well as during the summer. 9 o'clock is around the time that I suppose dusk, between 8 and 9. But again, because the Elm Park, for example, is open until 10 o'clock, there are still people there pretty late. So as we are entrepreneurs and run these businesses, you want to take advantage of the fees that we're paying to earn. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I guess finally, to that point, when can we have that addressed to request that 9 p.m. be the standard time versus something that changes from season to season?
Are you looking for something that's park-specific or overall?
Well, I suppose park-specific. We could talk about what overall looks like, but just generally speaking, we could talk about the parks. But I know that I'm not the only vendor in the city. I know that there's other public spaces like the streets where we have food trucks, that sort of thing. But I just noticed that since I've been here a resident in Worcester, we don't have a lot of vendors in the city. So if we could talk about the parks, unless you wanted to make it more general.
We
To benefit
can't really-
others.
Yeah, we can't talk about much more than the parks here.
Okay,
Those food trucks and whatnot
sure.
are outside of that.
So is that something you can vote on tonight?
I'm really not clear on that. Sometimes I see, there's a public comment if there's going to be a change at a park. Do you think that would apply here?
Madam Chair, my recommendation was to put it on an agenda item for the commission. We can bring in some paperwork on sort of what that is to make sure the commission understands what that decision is or how that affects everybody. We can, do some outreach as well to neighbors in some of our parks to see if anybody's interested in that, and we can go down that road. And then we'll also look, and I can talk to the law department about it as well.
Madam Chair. So, I know I at least would probably want to get a little bit more information on what this looks like in other cities as well. And I think some of this, we probably would have to be a bit more sort of park-specific even, because some of this might be issues of lighting. If there's no lighting, operating in a park, past dusk probably doesn't make much sense for a vendor, though I could be wrong. and I'm as a non-vendor. But, I think that it probably would need to be more on probably to some degree, a park-by-park basis, or at the very least, we may be able to group them together. But I know at least I would want to probably do a bit more homework onto what that would look like and how this has looked in other communities as well. But I'm certainly open to that conversation. It would be helpful through the chair to Mr. Antonelli if we could get some information of what does this look like in other cities, in the state, if there are any that are doing this, and if there are any other kind of limitations we would have. I'm just anticipating, in this case, you mentioned that Elm Park is open till 10. I know there are some parks that are only open until dusk. So it might be a question then too of do we have to extend then hours of specific parks?
Well, there are 27 parks that were up for bid this past year. Out of the 27, only 10 were bid on. And I've researched other areas, but like for example, Newport Beach, Hampton Beach, Harlem, I've actually driven down to because of a lot of my what I'm proposing and what I've actually proposed a plan to City Council with a unanimous support. It derives from the Harlem Renaissance. So as Worcester's been declared as going through a renaissance, I see that it's really benefiting a lot of the developers who are coming here, but not enough of the local people. So we're trying to like I said before, educate people on what the process of what it takes to become a street vendor or a street performer and benefit from the gentrification. So to your lighting point, for example, again, there's not a lot of people who, matter of fact, I'm the first one to do what I do the way that I do it at Elm Park. Most of the vendors have been food trucks. For example, I provide my own lighting. I have lighting around, because I operate from a stand. So these could be some options. But I'll just put it on another agenda like was suggested to address this further.
And I will say, I think that thank you for the information regarding the lighting and the other places that you've researched. So I definitely, having read through your information that's in our agenda, that's been helpful. So thank you for doing that homework for us.
No worries.
I do think that there probably would need to be at least some opportunity for input from like the abutting people to the parks.
Yeah.
I think that, we can move through sort of your other items, but I would be inclined to probably have this go maybe on our next agenda for something that we could then have some time so we can actually read through a little bit more and vote on it.
Okay. The next one is, what is the process to have the season to be a vendor extended to December 31st annually? In the past, my permit has gone to December 31st, but this is the first year that the season has been shortened to October 31st. So again, if we're being that this year is also the first year that we went to bid for this opportunity, I've now paid the most that anybody's ever paid to be at Elm Park with a shortened season. So for vendors across the city, if I think they would be able to offer things throughout the winter season that people, the community might enjoy. So to have vendors cut off at October 31st, I think would be unfair to the vendors. So wanted to find out what is the process to have that extended back to December 31st at least.
So I'm just getting a nod from Mr. Antonelli. I think that would be part of the same process of what the precedent is, what other communities are doing, how far do they go, and part of the whole package of what we could look at and discuss.
Okay, and just a reminder that this was the first year that it happened. Otherwise, my permits have gone to December 31st in the past.
If I may interrupt, through the chair, Mr. Antonelli, can you refresh us just as to why it was shortened for this year? Just some of us haven't been on the committee as long, so.
Yeah, so through the chair, what ended up happening was as daylight stopped and, you start going through daylight savings time and by Halloween, you're getting dark at 5:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30 or so. So that's when we made the decision to end it on Halloween. So that was the last day. It was getting too dark in the later evenings. And, at that point, it starts to get colder. You get less people that are there. So we ended up shutting it down at that point.
Through the chair, is the permit a monthly permit or a seasonal permit, or is it a daily permit, or?
So the permit for concessions is a yearly permit. So right now, it goes from April 1st till October 31st. So it's a yearly component. And that for those months. And so every year around now, we would put that back out for bid for the next year. And so that's the policy that we've built out with it in conjunctions with the city manager's office. And that's how we're sort of setting those up at this point.
So I'll take it that we'll put that on the next agenda to have that addressed, to see if we have that revised. Is that the process?
Yes.
Okay. All right, what is the process to change the current practice to allow more than one vendor at a park per season? As it's been, there's only one vendor allowed at a park, permitted at a park. 2018 was the first time that they had more than one. I was the new guy. The other guy had been there for, according to the park's records, from 2009 to 2018. But if you ask people in the community, he's been there for 20 or 30 years. So, so looking forward, like how could we have more than one? Elm Park for example, is a very big park. To give more opportunities to other people to be a vendor, what would be the process to have that change?
Madam Chair, that would go through the commission as well. Historically, and for precedent's sake, we have only allowed one vendor at each park facility for purposes of them being able to make as much as they can during a season at that particular park. And so we've done that particularly for that purpose. Elm Park may look big. It's not that big when the only place you can park is on Russell Street. You got three sides of that facility that you can't park on. And so it's, there's a battle, there could be a battle there that would end up causing additional issues. But the commission can more than willing to discuss that and make a determination on that.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, if it was me and I was given one of two permits for the park, I'd be happy there weren't more.
Well, so when I compared our process to other popular cities who have cities, they have more than one vendor at a park. So, for example, Elm Park is one of the first three municipality-owned parks in the United States. The other two are the Boston Common and Bushnell Park. So when I contacted Bushnell Park, their fee is $250 for the year. And I asked them, do you have a max on how many vendors do you have? They said, no, we never had that issue. So when I've gone down to New York, for example, when you see vendors on the street, you can have 4 or 5 people selling purses all next to each other. You see multiple hot dog carts next to each other. So it's not so much about competition. We know as entrepreneurs that competition is healthy. That's why you see the Dollar General and the Dollar Store next to each other, as well as McDonald's and Burger King. So it really comes down to entrepreneur as you got to sell better.
I'm just trying to find the square footage of the Bushnell Park. Well, I'm not familiar with Bushnell Park.
Well, Bushnell Park is in Hartford, and it's about actually maybe 3 to 4 times the size of Elm Park.
Okay.
Which could,
You answered a little bit of the question, I guess.
Right. But again, so a vendor, which I plan to ask later on, is how is a vendor defined? Because if you're used to seeing them in Worcester as food trucks, then yeah, you would look at the parking where those food trucks park. This is the first year that vendor has been split into 2 categories, being a concession and novelty. And there's been no precedent for a novelty here or definition of that. So when you look at a vendor could be a wide variety of things, or whether it be someone who's on a push cart, someone who's selling something from what they have on them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a parking issue where we're used to seeing food trucks. So there could be different types of vendors at a given park, seeing that the Parks Department manages 60, and 27 of them were up for bid, and only 10 of them were bid on this year.
I have a question related to that. Has there ever been anything done in the Parks Department master plans regarding what the residents of Worcester, how they feel about vending in the parks as it relates to, you know, I don't know, if you go to Polar Park, you expect someone to be selling things to you, but when it comes to vendors in the parks, has there ever been any comment in those master plans about what the people feel about that? People who visit the parks, people who use the parks?
So in some of the master plans, yes, we've identified specific locations for a vendor to be able to park, to be able to safely vend from, trying to get them either off the road or, into a particular facility. Usually it's, it might be a small little drive-in or part of a parking lot where we'll identify that. So we've looked at that at Great Brook Valley, Farber Field, we're looking at it at Shore Park, Clawson Road Beach, those types of facilities. So we have done that in those facilities. But they are all vendor trucks. So the majority of them are vendor trucks that would roll up, use the facility, and then leave. With that being said, Bushnell is about 50 acres. Elm Park is 60 acres when you count Newton Hill. But Newton Hill is the majority of the acreage at Elm Park. And remember, Elm Park has, 3 meres in the middle of it as well. So there's, land-wise, it's much, much smaller than Bushnell Park.
So what would be the process to request that there be more, maybe redefine what a vendor is, vendor types, besides, like I said, the precedent being food trucks, other types of vendors, and then so therefore being able to have more than one at Elm Park, as it is, it may be smaller than Bushnell, it still is a sizable park. So if somebody were on the, for example, I usually operate by the playground. If there's somebody on the complete other side of the park who's doing something else, that doesn't impact what I'm doing or where I am. For those who are familiar with Elm Park in the room. There's also another side that's by the Park Ave side, that again, if somebody were selling balloons, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing where I stand. So, kind of redefining what a vendor is, and then adding some more opportunities. Maybe we could talk about what a number, maybe it's start with 2 and see how that impacts. But there were 27 parks that were up for bid. So there could be multiple opportunities coming up if people were aware that here is an opportunity and here's how it's defined, and to take advantage of that.
Through the chair, wouldn't also part of your educational program of your entity, wouldn't that be to say, hey, we've got 17 more parks out there that you can put a bid on?
Well,
As opposed to fighting for the 10?
Well, that's a good question. That actually leads to my next question. What is the process to have vendors permitted at a flat rate versus a bid? This process is inherently inequitable. This is the first year that we've gone to a bid process. Up until this year, there has been no rate schedule. So when we went to a bid, a lot of the other vendors that were part of the process felt like they had to have an attorney walk them through the vendor form. I personally went down to the purchasing department and had the purchasing manager walk, line by line to fill out the application form, because that bid form was a state form, and it wasn't specific to Worcester vendors. So it was more for, construction, ambulances, and all kinds of, maybe 75% of that form didn't apply. So that would be one of my questions too. How can we go to a flat rate versus a bid?
Madam Chair, to answer that question, we have gone to the bidding process so that it is fair and equitable, and so that it's fair and equitable for everybody to be able to bid on the same facility. So in a world where we have 4 or 5 people that may want to go to a single park, who do you pick? What's the process? So we went through the bid process to make it easy, clean. There's plenty of purchasing is more than willing to work with everybody that comes in, no different than any other bid process that goes on through them if there are questions. We did 4 addendums to the bid process the last time out. to clarify questions that came in, to extend the bidding time, to make sure that everybody had enough time to be able to submit a bid. So in our eyes, that bidding process is the best and easiest way to be fair across the board with everybody to be able to use that.
Those addendums were made because I petitioned, because the season was supposed to start April 1st. The season didn't start until April 3rd, which gave very little time for people to participate in the bid process. So there are just about all of the addendums that were made were because I was advocating for equity in the process. So inherently, again, it's easier to get more money out of one person than it is to give more people an opportunity to be part of that. So I would suggest that maybe it would be a first come, first served basis versus an exorbitant amount of for a bid. Plus, it was blind. So now you're looking at other people and trying to figure out, man, you know, what are they going to bid? And I had to guess, and thankfully I won. Was it equitable? I wouldn't say just because of who I am that it was equitable, but I think that that it could be done a better way.
Through the chair, is there a minimum bid, Rob, on a park?
There's a minimum bid for each park.
Okay, what is that minimum bid?
It depends on the facility.
Okay. I'm just trying, you know, just an idea. But two, a blind bid process is, that's law. It's, otherwise, now I know what you're doing. Your buddy in the office says, hey, Nick Ciaccione bid $50, go bid $50.01.
I understand that
So that's
part.
the purpose of the blind bid process. So the envelopes get all opened at the same time.
Sure. I mean, I was standing there when they did it, actually. So the minimum bid for Elm Park, for example, is $1,000 for concession. All right. The minimum bid for novelty was $300, and so aside from so I doubled both just so that I could win, and then I estimated another $125 just in case there was anybody else that bid. So I've now, because of this process, paid the most that anyone has ever paid to be at Elm Park, which you know, I think it's a challenge given that we have shortened seasons, we have shortened times. On top of that, which we've kind of gone over before, we've now if we're looking at dusk being able to having be removed from the park. We're looking at not being only able to operate until October 31st. Where personally, when my permit has gone until December, people are still walking the parks until at least the first week of December. They're there until Thanksgiving.
Madam Chair, on that, all of that was clearly delineated in the bid documents of what the timing was, what the rules were. All of that was clearly delineated in the bid process. So all bidders were on the same page. All bidders could make the choice on what value they put on a particular facility and decide what makes the most sense. And so it made it a fair process because everybody was on the same page. First come, first serve for the vending piece. How do you determine that? Is it the first one that's in the office? Is it, there's too many other issues with that, whereas the bidding process is clean and complete, and all the information is there.
So my question was initially, what is the process to change that practice, the process of having a bid and just going to a flat rate? Is there a way that we can address that where the public can have input on that that decision?
Through the chair, at this time, we will be going through the bid process.
Excuse me, Jeff, I'm doing quick math in my head. You paid about $1,500 in fees last year?
So because the season started late, it was $2,700 was what I bid. I ended up paying $2,300 because the season started late. They made it.
Okay, so so it's about $10 a day rent? April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months approximately. Divide those 230 some odd days into that. I'm playing devil's advocate. I do want to see more buskers or vendors in the other parks. I want all 27 parks to have activity. I guess I have trouble not doing a bid process. I don't think first come, first serve is the right way because a year from now, someone else is gonna be in that same podium saying, well, he was over here at 8 o'clock in the morning and got his application in before I can get here, because I had to put my kids to school. It's, there's gotta be, I think the happy medium is the bid process. If you're there every day and you spent all, you spent all that time there, I don't think it's an unfair fee. I understand where you're coming from, that's the first year. But pizzeria owners pay rent to sell pizza. The $10 a day is, I'm not sure what your hours are there or how long you're there during the day, but I'm just trying to break down the math.
Okay. What is the process to have?
If I may, sorry,
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
a quick question through the chair to Mr. Antonelli. When a vendor puts in for the bid and gets selected, is there any requirement that they actually be there at certain times, certain days, or is it kind of, hey, it's open to you, you can be there and show up or don't?
So there are only times when they can't be there. So
Okay.
we give them a range of what that is, and whether they show up at 10 in the morning or noontime or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's really up to them to make that decision on when they're there. We don't dictate when you can be there. We just say, all right, you can't be there between sunset and 8 a.m. And that's the only thing. Any other time that they have it, they can be there as much or as little as they want during the operating times.
Sorry, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. What is the process to consider a revision of the job description for the park staff to include supporting daily vendors by observing them while they load and unload? They would not be required to physically help. A reasonable time limit and/or speed limit could be given to the vendors. So again, what is the process to consider a revision to the job description of the park staff?
Union and human resources. I think that would probably be a human resource and union issue.
Who would I contact for that?
Well, let me just, if we're back to the 27 parks, but we're not, we're at 10 parks. If at 10 parks, 10 buskers show up at the same time to start at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, now I need 10 employees just sitting there watching people unload.
Oh,
Is that
no.
what you're asking?
No, so that would be more in regards to a vendor versus a busker. So a busker is a street, like a performer.
Okay.
Okay. So a vendor, and from my experience and precedent, so far vendors have been food trucks. So they don't need to unload. However, what I was offering as a vendor at Elm Park, for example, I operated from a stand. Now, keep in mind, no one has ever done operate the way I do. It didn't take me an hour or so to unload my truck, but I was told that I needed to pay $60 an hour at a 44-hour minimum to have the assistance of park staff to observe me unload my truck, which didn't end up. So I don't require their help at all. Matter of fact, I just drive in and out. And on one of the occasions, I had Scott Marin, who came over and talked to me about it, and said as long as you get in and out, and it shouldn't be an issue. But then it became an issue. So I wanted to find out if for the reason that we're going to say that we need park staff authorization, access, and staffing, I'm paying $60 an hour. How can we, and it came from their union requirements for that. What is the process to have that, something like that, revised and changed? Because it's a really small thing. I don't for someone like me who's a vendor in the park, I don't require their assistance at all.
I think you would have to go through human resources and discuss that with them as a union
Through the
issue,
chair.
correct? Rob?
So there are two things in question here. Number one, Mr. Killebrew does not need park assistance to load in and out, right? Whatever time of the day it is, he doesn't need that. What he needs it for is when he chooses to drive into the park and bring his vehicle into the middle of the park, unauthorized. That's when he needs park staff. Number two is if he's unloading and loading from the curb, then he's fine. The problem is for Mr. Killebrew is that he wants to bring that material all the way over to the playground. And so it's a distance. It's a walking distance. And I understand his point, makes it easy for him just to pull his vehicle up. We don't allow people to drive in the park without park staff being there. And any time after 3 o'clock, we're on overtime. We don't have staff there after 3. And then in the mornings, our staff need to be out there doing the work that they need to do, not supervising a vendor or vendors coming in and coming out. So we don't have that flexibility. We're already short on staff, and we need to get more stuff done. You heard today about working on ball fields and everything else. Now I'm going to take staff away to watch vendors pull in and pull out at no charge. We got too much to do. We got too much work that needs to be done, too much that needs to be accomplished, trash barrels that need emptying, trash needs to be picked up, grass needs to be mowed, on and on and on. So the issue here is that we don't need staff if you load and unload at the curb or move your location closer to the curb. We're fine. It's when you want to pull into the park, then yes, we are requiring staff to be there.
It sounds like we don't need staff at all then in the process. So I was told for authorization, access, and staffing, I needed to pay that $60 an hour, 4-hour minimum. And again, I don't, as he mentioned, I don't need that their support in unloading my truck. So if I were to drive, for someone like me, or I would drive into the park, unload, and leave. So we could, if anything, maybe we could talk about a minimum speed limit, or let's see, or time limit for someone to unload if that were an issue. But for what I was doing, and I have, a matter of fact, we can talk about this. Was there any harm, and was anybody injured by me accessing to unload or unload? Have there been any issues with me doing that?
So I'd like to clarify, it sounds like what you're talking about is all vendors, right? Not just your business.
Yes, because we're looking at ways to make this overall process easier. So 2.4 point G of the cultural development plan said they wanted to simplify the application process for vendors, right? And there are a lot of other verbiage within that document that makes Worcester sound like Wakanda with all their promises of equity and public art and public spaces. But when it comes down to it, there are a lot of challenges, and this would be one of them. So I think if being able to have people to do something like I did, it would be a lot easier for them. Again, to the point, I was walking my stuff from the street about 60, almost 100 yards to the playground, where it could have been as simply as Scott Marin observed, me driving in, unload, out, and no harm done.
Sure, but with multiple vendors in a park, especially a park that has a lot of activity in it, like Elm Park, it's a real safety issue, and it can also damage the park. There are trails, there are trees, there are plantings, so it's
So
not
can I
specific to
explain
you.
where I drove into the park was not on grass. Okay, so it was on the paved on the rockway, and again, there were no incidents of anyone being harmed by doing that. Of course, I pay attention. We have insurance. We have liability insurance, and there was no issues except for the fact that this is a standing rule. So my question is, what would it take to change that? So it would be a lot easier for someone like myself, maybe even at another park.
It sounds like you would need to petition the Parks Department for that, to come here and ask for it to happen, but personally, I think it could be problematic. It has nothing to do with you, but you're asking for multiple vendors to come into parks, and multiple people are driving through Elm Park?
No. So depends. I suppose it depends on what they do. We talked about a variety of vendors, like what they could do, and so far we still only have one at Elm Park. Maybe we suggested potentially two. And if there are two there, what are the different things that they offer? So it wouldn't be necessarily now a fleet of vendors driving and flooding the park. And if we were just talking about me in particular, so that we don't have this issue going forward, again, I drive on the driveway where the parks trucks drive, the same area that they drive. So I had a U-Haul truck that I drove into the park to unload the little cars that kids can drive that I rent out. We have a ice cream machine that I sell ice cream from. These are a lot of my materials that versus unloading in the park, it takes me about an hour to take everything one by one from the street. I had mothers that would volunteer to help me unload the truck. I had youth from the school that would volunteer to help me unload the truck, when it could have been an easy thing to be settled by me driving in and out.
Oh, one question I have, so we have been on your item for a little over a half an hour now. You have about 10 pages of questions.
I've been waiting for 2 years to ask these because I've been continually tabled.
He does push himself off it. I don't mind listening a little bit, but.
Yeah, I think there are other agenda items as well.
Can I just, a question, through Rob, through the chair, maybe now thinking outside the box, what about renting a unit that could be placed where you are, where your tent could be set up every day, if you're there every day, that you can, for a one-time fee, you drive on, you load your stuff into a unit, then you drive off, and your stuff is in a portable unit for the summer, then at the end of the summer, you take it off.
It sounds like a good idea. Again, this is the first time that I've been able to go full with my offerings at the park. Now, we do, in that, at Elm Park in particular, you have that one building where there's other items housed. That could be potentially an option too. But otherwise, space for a container like you're mentioning probably wouldn't be a good idea right at the space where I operate, but maybe next to that.
I'm just saying.
I think it's a good idea. It's an option. I think it's reasonable.
I don't want Rob to hurt, yell at me after, I don't know what the park looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know what the setup would be where you are. Maybe there's a place to talk. I'm not saying use one of the buildings. I'm just
That's the reason.
I'm not a fan of anybody driving on a park other than the Parks Department. Because what's going to happen is a baseball league's going to say, well, why can't I take my trucks on there? Another activity say, why can't we drive on there? Now we got to come back every week and talk about, okay, let's amend it to buskers and little leagues. I think it opens a can of worms, and I'm not a big fan of anybody driving on there, whether it be for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour and a half, without some sort of escort. So I'd like to see you look at outside the box type ideas for storage.
Well, outside of that, we were looking at just minimizing the fee of looking back at the requirement of that staffing authorization of $60 an hour at a 4-hour minimum. If we're saying that it only costs $10 a day to be there, now I'm paying $240 a day to have somebody watch me load and unload, and I'm not even making that much a day.
That's why I'm saying think outside the box.
That's a union. That's a union issue. There's no control over that.
So the union. What is that union called? How would I?
I have to go through human resources, the city.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair, union is Local 495. There's a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Worcester and Local 495.
Thank you.
Now, to your point, Chair, lady, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. It's kind of far. All right, but there are a lot of other points. Like you mentioned, I have several pages of this because I've been waiting a long time to address these issues. So I'd be willing to come back at another time to give more time to others who may be on the agenda as well. But there's a lot more that needs to be addressed about the process for street vending and street performance that can be, as I see, prohibitive versus inclusionary for this coming year in the future. Just to shoot over really quick to busking, see that the new ordinance is it's going to be $50 for a minimum of a limit of two weeks. So for anywhere on the map in Worcester. So if somebody wanted to stand on a corner and play a guitar for the year, that'd be $1,200. And so it also begs the question about Second Amendment rights. If a person wanted to, a street preacher wanted to be on the corner and, do his thing, would he have to get a permit in order to do that? If a person wanted to have a group, would they have to pay individually, or could the group apply? There's a how, and is that enforceable if somebody's is standing with a guitar on the corner and they're performing? Are they in jeopardy of being arrested? That sort of thing.
Madam Chair, so I can answer a little bit of that. So there is a busking ordinance. I have supplied it to this commission previously, I think last fall at some point. And we had the busking permit as part of our packages in January. So those two things are there. We do not, this commission does not, this office does not manage busking outside of a public park. But within a public park, the busker needs approval from this commission. That's the way the ordinance reads. We can debate that all we want, but if you want that changed, that's a city council item that would need to be changed. So with that being said, we've set the program up for busking. We've identified some locations for that as well within our public parks. You need permission from the Parks Department, from Parks Commission, to be able to busk within a public park. Outside of that, we have no control over a street, downtown, a street corner someplace. We don't have that responsibility.
The way that it reads on the form, it says anywhere on the map in Worcester.
Through the chair to Mr. Antonelli. For that, just so I'm clear, the ordinance for this came from City Council, but it falls under the purview of Parks. So if we wanted to change the amount or the time frame, that's something that would fall to us. Is that correct?
So the ordinance does not fall under
No.
Parks. The
Okay.
ordinance falls under the council.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to change the fee or the time frame, then yes, that would fall under that, under this commission. But the requirements of the ordinance do not. The ordinance would be City Council.
Perfect. Thank you.
So just to wrap it up, because in the interest of time and others, for those here and at home, if you have any questions about the proposal that I have as far as the Worcester Renaissance Project, you can reach out to famjameventgroup@gmail.com. I'd be happy to provide that proposal to you. And now that you all, the commissioners, have the list of questions, I would encourage you to please look through that so that the time that we come back for the next agenda, we might be able to move along and a little bit quicker, and we have more reference point for these things that I'm suggesting. I appreciate your time.
Is through the chair, I think, did he send this in double-sided? Is there a way to get it single-sided? Because what happens is, you send it in double-sided, and it gets attached as an attachment, and I'm constantly rotating the page 90 degrees, and I don't mind doing, it takes me away sometimes from listening to you.
Sure.
You have to, that's all I ask, just send it in one-sided so it can get reattached.
No problem. I actually sent it in a PDF form. So the form, the way that it got, and I saw the same thing when I went online. It should not have been flopped like that. I
Okay,
don't know.
I'm
But
not sure what
if you like, I can send it through an email or.
Madam Chair, we can send that back out to the commission.
If you do it even that way, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
That's
the
all.
PDFs we
That's-
have.
Yeah, just so I can.
But thank you for your time, and
Thank you.
we'll be checking up the next time. Thank you.
And so, to the chair, it seems, we have a number of questions that have been brought up, and it seems like we need to sort of set up a time to revisit those. So, for the rest of the commission, I guess we just need to determine when we would want to revisit those, or if those would need to be resubmitted for specifically to be voted on.
So there's a meeting February 29th.
29th
did you
is
say?
the events permit meeting,
And then the next one is,
April 4th, so it may be that we need to work on scheduling an additional meeting, is my thought, depending on the availability of my fellow commissioners.
what is the start of the vendor season again? It's the beginning of April? Or that's when the bids have to go in and whatnot?
The regular time is April 1st.
Just to clarify that question, does that mean that the bid goes live April 1st? Or does that mean that the bid will be open before April 1st for the vendors to take advantage of the April 1st being the start date for them to operate?
Through the chair, as of right now, the bids, you would award them before April 1st, is the plan.
Through the chair, they fall into the same park closures as sports fields and everything else. Does that make, if the parks, if the baseball fields aren't open April 1st, I assume the busking isn't allowed on parks before April 1st, does that make?
So, yes, so we don't open parks, we open them all as one unit across the board. So if we're still closed for those particular purposes, yes.
I've been in the city for about 15 years. I haven't seen parks open on April 1st in a long time. It just as a reference, it's always wet. We're usually that second, third week is usually when I see parks open up, just to give you a timeline too.
So through the chair to Mr. Antonelli, you said the bids would already be awarded by then. Do we have a timeline on when the city would be doing that? Because my thought is for some of this, we may need to try and schedule a meeting prior to that.
The plan was to have those out within the next few weeks, probably towards the end of the month to meet the beginning of January. The beginning of March, so that we're available to open in April.
That was the challenge last year, which is why I filed that petition to give them extended time. There's not, this year is the first year too that you split up the special events from today's meeting. But I have not been part of a vendor information session or now the busker. So I would think I would like to have one of those the same way that we have for tonight for the Little Leagues, specific meeting specific for vendors and performers.
Madam Chair, that would be a purchasing item, so the questions would have to go to purchasing on those.
Okay. And I think,
I guess, sorry, through the chair, my question then, I guess, sorry, and I apologize if I just didn't quite pick this up. So when is the deadline that the bids must be in by? So the drop dead date, if you will.
That has not been set yet, because we haven't sent them out. So usually it's a 2 to 3 week window from when we open them to when we close them. So the anticipation is to get it out towards the end of February with a opening sometime in the middle of March. So then paperwork can all happen for April.
So then through the chair, it seems like the logistical challenges related to trying to change the bid versus flat rate process is probably not possible this year in terms of timing, given the numerous multiple parts kind of involved. However, I think regarding maybe some of the other items that could be addressed regarding the timeline or, in terms of time, length of day or length of weeks are items that maybe could be addressed potentially if we were to have a meeting sooner versus later. But Mr. Antonelli, please, your input on that.
Yeah, you could, if the changes, if the commission chose to make those changes, yes, you could do it. Even if the bid is out, we can do an addendum or to the bid that would say the following changes. We did 4 of them on the last bid, so that would be available to us as well. So if you chose to do it, I don't know, the week before or the week after the next one, and then we're going to open up the 3rd week or the 2nd week in March, we'd have some availability at that point.
my thought on this, and I did go through your list of questions prior to this meeting. There's a lot of questions. A lot of them are, if you're looking to refine a process that benefits a lot of people at a lot of different parks, a lot of these are specific to you and what you're trying to do. And then a lot of these are things that, in my opinion, aren't productive, like, the hot dog vendor that was there in 2015. We don't really know about that, and you could waste a lot of time. Like, you're trying to, hopefully, I think, affect some change for this 2024 season, and there's just not a lot of time left. So I think some of these questions could probably be scaled back and focus on, like, what are you trying to come to us and get? You know, you're asking about longer hours and certain other things, and there's other things that could be discussed. But
Well,
like,
the
a lot
reason
of
why
time could
I
be
asked
talking
the
about
questions the
those.
way that I did is, for one, for those who have never gone through the process but might be interested. Some of the questions I know the answers to, some of them I don't. But it needs to be put on public record because, and the reason we're looking at or what's happened before me is to show what the difference in the other vendors before myself. For example, again, the only other person who's been at Elm Park has been Elm Park Food Truck. That owner lives across the street from the house, from the park. And he had been there for 20 or 30 years, according to the people in the community. But according to Parks Department's records, he had been there from 2009 to 2018, which I would then deduce that I would be the first black vendor in the history of the park. But now that I've come into the scene, a lot of the rules and regulations have now changed. For one, being that there was no rate schedule before. So when I talked about the fee for being there, there's improper records keeping of that. There was a time where I was put on probation because somebody complained about the price of my $5 for kids to drive around the park. But there was no documentation on who made the call, when, or then which resulted in me being put on a probation. And then the Parks Commission was supposed to meet every 2 weeks during that probationary period. But a lot of the commissioners were unsure of what the process was. They never met. And then eventually I was, I guess we moved on. But there was a lot of things that have happened since I became a vendor at the park that have not been addressed, which I see and have felt as discriminatory between myself and the other person who has been there. Not only that, there was another person, another vendor. I won't say his truck's name, but while I was going through the process of becoming a vendor, the application process, I had questioned where the $500 fee had come from. And through the process of me asking where the fee came from, the permit was given to someone else while I was going through what I thought was the due process of requesting to appear before the Parks Commission. So the reason why I'm asking those questions is to show that there has been some issues with the vending process aside from, just most recently. If we're going to look at what's happening now, it's important to be put in the context of what's happened before.
And we have talked about that before. I bring this up to say, if there's only 2 months before this bid process opens and the season begins, I guess just, what do you want to get out of these meetings?
A public record as to answers to these questions that I've been waiting to ask for 2 years because I've been continually tabled. So I've been getting a runaround from the Parks Department in regards to having these questions answered. Then once we address what has happened, then it's clearly seen that there's a need for a solution to these problems. And it impacts more than just myself because this could create a lot of opportunity for other people to start a business as a street vendor or a street performer if there was more transparency in the process and it was promoted as here's something that you can do in the city. And not only to start a business, but impact the local economy and bring in tourism, because now we have the major things that we have, the venues that we have to look forward to in Worcester are the ballpark. We have the DCU, Hanover, the Palladium. But outside of that, when tourists come to the city, there's not a lot of that we have to offer. So when we look like a major city by having more vendors, when we look like a major city by having more performers, that brings more attraction to the city. So what I'm talking about is a cultural and economic development plan. But first, we have to look at what the issues are, and not in a silo.
Madam Chair, I'd like to remind the commission that Mr. Killebrew was on the commission agenda for multiple months and did not show up.
Right.
So
My question is for that. How was I informed?
We ended up tabling the item, or
I was not
filing
informed of
the
those
item,
meetings. And if you can prove
and
to me,
it
show
was
me how that was
on the
communicated.
agenda for multiple months.
Please
And when
let
we
me know
talk
where
about
those.
transparency, here's the problem, right?
They were not communicated. That is the problem. So if you can show me where They'll communicate it to me by email, because I've done my own documentation. As you can see, I am prepared. So if you can provide to me those dates and how they were communicated, I would be very interested to know when those dates were that I missed an agenda where I was invited and informed to be here.
So that is one of the questions that you've had. We are now on what it appears to be question 6 of page 1. I think it would be best if we roll these questions forward to the next meeting. We do have 3 other agenda items, so we will roll this forward to the next meeting. And we will keep working through these questions individually.
Thank you so much, and appreciate your time. But again, we're looking for those dates. So if I've missed a meeting, please let me know when I was informed to be here.
The next item is a request of David Webb to speak to the commission on in what situations have vendors been assessed additional fees, such as probation, and in those circumstances, how were those fees assessed?
Yeah, so before I do my things, I actually want to ask a few things from Geoff. I will try and keep it concise. I understand you guys have been here for a significant number of hours today. Okay, so first and foremost, was any research, sounds like the year was changed last year. Previous to that, it had gone until December 31st. The reason given was daylight savings time. Through the chair, did daylight savings time change in 2022 or 2023?
I'm going to open this right now. Mr. Webb, I'm going to just say this to you. If you're going to come off as antagonistic, going at Mr. Antonelli, I will make a motion to table all these items, and this conversation will not happen tonight.
I appreciate your threat to
Okay.
silence me.
It's not a threat.
I need to ask my question.
Okay, you can ask your question, but don't be antagonistic, and don't come at Mr. Antonelli or any of us, because it will be over.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me rephrase then. What changed between the past 26 years and last year for that time frame, the season to change?
Through the chair, we made it consistent across the board with all vendors as part of the bidding process.
So was there anything that changed other than your policies?
We made it consistent across the board for all vendors through the bidding process.
Okay, so that is a change from the previous year? Just like that doesn't answer my question. I'm not trying to
We
be
made a change through the bidding process for all bidders.
Is that a yes?
So yes,
We made a
there was a
change.
Well,
change.
thank you. Okay, so was there any, I guess, was this change based on any external circumstances, or was it purely an internal decision? The external circumstance you mentioned earlier was daylight savings time and when it gets dark.
We made the change so everybody was on the same page and so that our vendors all knew exactly what the time frame was. Those are the dates that we chose.
Was it previously not everyone on the same page with the same dates?
That is correct.
Huh, okay. So that was one thing. The other, I just, of course, need to have it on the record that I filed a bunch of public records requests and confirmed that there was there's been many different issues like the ones Geoff is talking about where they've tried to be on the agenda and for one reason or not, we're not. The first meeting I was here, and it's on the open record from that meeting, they were not accepted, and Mr. Killebrew was told that by the chair that they were not aware he wanted to be on the agenda because he did not respond to something. And I understand that sounds antagonistic, but that is directly related to one of my later requests, so we'll save that for there. So anyways, the first request that I was introduced for, what role does the parks, in what situation have vendors been assessed additional fees such as probation? And in those circumstances, how were those fees assessed?
So through the chair, the vendor has not been associated additional fees. We have, through precedent setting on the Parks Commission, used the Parks Commission as a place for, when issues arose, to have vendors, permit holders come to the Parks Commission and explain how and what happened and how they're going to fix the issue.
In what situations have vendors been assessed probation fees?
None.
Okay.
So what you're talking about, Mr. Webb, is that in all of what we did, Mr. Killebrew was given a year and a half or so to try to run his business there at no charge. It had nothing to do with anything else, but it was time for him to start paying for use of Elm Park, as all other vendors had previously. We, the Parks Department, gave him the ability to use the park at no fee to make sure that what he was proposing, slime, rides, was going to work. And then once we knew that it was, fees started to be imposed. It had nothing to do with the probation, it had nothing to do with that. He began the fees at that point.
So if I go back and watch those meetings, the word probation won't be used repeatedly? There won't be a discussion of meeting weekly for probationary reasons? I haven't looked yet, so I'm just asking. You seem to know more about this specific thing than me.
I don't understand the question.
Was the word probation used in relation to these fees?
I don't know.
Aren't you the person who speaks for the park? Okay, so the next question, because this is part of this one, and every time you talk about it was it was written somewhere, everyone received the same thing. You can do whatever you want because it's in the bid contract. So if they agreed to it, you can do it. Where was it written that those? I won't call them fees because I don't want to get into semantics. But where was it written that they might be charged? That thing you ended up charging them, whether or not you called it a probationary fee.
So, I'm
still not
Based on what-
confused.
I'm not sure what the fee is because it seems to be vague, and probation is a word that it looks like we can't admit, and there obviously aren't records of.
well, it sounds like he was on probation for
For no
breaking
a rule separate from the driving, I'm assuming.
And so I couldn't find anything on the website about probation, and I guess I'm asking, where is that? Where could Mr. Killebrew have known about that in advance?
I don't know if he was told, I don't know. But it sounds like in terms of the fee, from what Mr. Antonelli's saying, he hadn't been charged, and after he established himself, correct me if I'm wrong, just like everybody else, he was then.
It doesn't sound like just like everyone else. That's what we're saying, is this is an exceptional circumstance
It
that is
is-
unlike
No,
every
when,
other.
when
chair.
every other vendor is paying a fee and he's not, and after he established himself and wants to
then
consistently.
why
That
is it
is the
called
case,
probationary?
Mr. Chairman, through the chair, that is the case.
Right.
Everybody else was paying the fee. Mr. Killebrew did not pay the fee. So once he established himself, then he paid the fee.
Right.
Through the chair, can you provide any clarity onto the noise issue that they discussed earlier? That seemed to be directly related, sorry, not noise. The fees seem to be associated to the fact that they were charging $5. Can you provide any information around that?
It sounds like someone complained that there was an activity taking place in the park, which is a public park, and a fee was being charged. I think it's fair to bring forth the point that maybe not everyone goes to a park and expects there to be, if you bring your kids there and they see something happening, they
If we
want to
normalize
do it,
vendors, that might not
and
be
there's
the
a
issue.
fee. If there weren't any vendors, it wouldn't be an issue.
I said if
guess
we
so, yeah.
normalized vendors, if we did if people went to parks because there were vendors and buskers and not one vendor per park and an auction system that discouraged people from applying, there would be more vendors and people would expect vendors and we wouldn't have this issue.
But not everyone goes to a park to buy things.
No, but if I complain about, let me put it this way. I show up at a park and I complain about the softball people being too loud. You're not about to charge them $200 a week or make them come back every 2 weeks to figure something out, and the word probation
They
probably
have.
wouldn't be-
Actually, they have.
They have.
They absolutely have.
They have.
Don't even, we've
Is it called a
we've had
probation?
leagues in here,
Yes.
month after
We've
month.
pulled- We've
and
pulled
yes.
permits from leagues.
So then where is the word probation used in any of this? It seems like you guys are denying that it was ever used now. So I guess, let me take a step back. Can we confirm that you have charged someone something that had the word probation attached at some point in time in the past, or are we, am I being gaslit right now?
I think I think probation can be used two ways. At some point, you gotta say, thank you, Rob, for giving Geoff no permit fees for a while during a good probationary period.
So if you guys keep harping on, we can do this because you agreed to it, because we put it forward, because it was in writing, because they agreed. Where was it written that those fees might be charged? Sorry, I'm gonna, for this moment.
I do appreciate the opportunity to have started at no cost. That was a great opportunity for myself and my daughter. The problem came about when there was a complaint that was made, but was not given. I was not informed of the complaint. It was not properly documented. Okay, so when I went to go renew my permit, I was not given. My permit was not renewed. Okay, so then it was until the following year when I came and requested to be back in front of the commission, where we had that conversation about what the complaint was, and that complaint was about the $5 that I was charging for rides at the park. Now, if you compare that to a food truck who's there, if somebody doesn't like the price of the food truck and of his ice cream, should that person be put on probation? So then when I was told that I would be on probation, there was the first time that I was charged $50 every 2 weeks throughout this probationary period, to which the commission was not sure of the probation process because Assistant Commissioner Antonelli was not there during that meeting. The other gentleman who was here earlier, he was the one who chaired it. So do you know the older guy with the
Geoff?
Jeff?
No. I want to say his name is Steve. I don't know, but my point is he wasn't. There was no one to answer to this process of being on probation. So the commissioners all asked each other, so do we have to have special meetings now every 2 weeks to now consider this? And they didn't. No one could answer the question. So we just kind of let it go on from there. And for I think maybe the next 4 or 5 weeks, I paid the $50, and after that, I wasn't charged again. So the question would be, if was that fee, it was never clarified whether that fee that I was charged was that a probationary fee or was that my fee to get started. So then the following year, I was told that I have to pay $500. So I asked to be in front of the commission again. Where did that $500 fee amount come from? Because up until that point, I was told that a person could make a donation of maybe $500, $1,000, or $1,500, but never given what those fees were relative to. What benefits do you get based on those different fees? The point is there was no rate schedule. Those numbers were just or appears to have been just made up. So at that point, when I started to question about where these fees were coming from, I've been tabled for the last 2 years. So instead of so that's why my questions are so long, based on my personal experience, and talking to some of the other guys, the other food truck vendors in the city. So when we were looking at pulling public records, to show that no, it doesn't appear that anybody else has been put on a probation. It doesn't appear that anybody else has been charged a fee. It doesn't appear that anybody else was tabled from being prevented from speaking because they submitted a request to be on the agenda by a PDF versus a Word document. There's a lot of things that have seemed to be, especially after we look at public records, only have happened to me.
Okay, through the chair. I'm trying to piece things together because I wasn't here 2 years ago. The $50 fee, Rob, is that the fee you were charging him to be in the park?
Correct.
Okay, so it wasn't a probationary penalty, that was just the fee. So for a portion of the time, he was there for free
Yep.
to see if he can get his business rolling.
Yep.
Then you said, okay, we'll go every 2 weeks at $50 every 2 weeks. Or whatever that, I'm
I'd
not
have to
sure.
look at, I'd have to see what
Okay,
that, but yeah.
I'm just
something
going by
along
what
those
is said
lines.
here. So it's not a probation penalty.
No.
That was just the fee being imposed because he had the free ride for the first month, whatever it was.
Right, no different than the fee that was paid by the previous vendor or other vendors in public parks.
Now my second question, I guess, and who cares how much he charges for a ride, I guess, am I missing something here? Was there a complaint
There was a complaint that came in, yes.
that just
on
because
it.
the price of his,
Yeah, there was a complaint on that end of it, and,
what did-
I mean, we want to harp on this, that's fine, but nothing ever came out of it
Okay.
after that, and
so a complaint came in one ear out the other,
then we
basically?
said, the commission went through the process, and that was it.
He was never penalized for charging,
Nope.
okay.
Wasn't put on probation for that.
No, there was the commission did say that we want to watch this and see if anything else comes in. But then after that,
Okay.
there was no need to do anything else
Right.
because we didn't get any other complaints.
Right.
And so then it was over with.
But the complaint was about my price. So the question is that a reasonable reason to put
Well,
somebody
that's
on
what,
probation?
you weren't on probation for the,
Right.
you're misconstruing the word probation.
Wait a minute, because you weren't, you're fairly respectfully new to this process. What I'm saying is that I had already been operating. I started in 2018. Okay, so in the fall of 2018 is when this complaint came in. When I started to renew my permit, because it was only going from like every month to month or week to week. At the end of 2019, when I applied again, my permit was not renewed. When I asked why my permit wasn't renewed, I did not get a straight answer until the following season, until July of the following year. So I was not able to operate. My permit was not renewed. So then when I finally got back in front of the commission, I was told that I would be put on a probation and now assessed a fee of $50 every 2 weeks during that probationary period, and I have email documentation for that. So it was never defined that my fee that I'm paying now, that I was being charged at the time, was now going for my fee for operation, because it was not continued for the rest of the season. It was only during that probationary period. It was never distinct. It was never distinguished between the probationary period and this $50 fee, because they both started at the same time and they both ended at the same time. And I continued to operate even after that period without the fee. So it would beg the question: was that fee just for that probationary period? Because it was never defined. It started and ended at the same time.
I don't have dates. I just, from what I'm
Well,
hearing.
those dates I put in those questions. So when you get time to read through those questions,
Flip 'em.
everything is there.
From what I'm hearing, you were given a certain amount of time to get your business up and running. Then it was after you showed sustainability, Rob said, hey, you know what, you're doing fine. Now we have to impose a standard fee.
But that fee was not, that was not communicated. What was communicated was there's a complaint, and now you're going to be put on probation. And during this probationary period, I can show you by email so that it will clear up. Just as confused as you are, as that's how I was during that time period, to find out why am I now being assessed a fee? Why am I being put on probation because somebody complained about my fee? If I don't have to change my price, why am I being put on probation?
I totally agree with you on the pricing. I couldn't care less what you charge. I'm not sure the story's coming out exactly how it played out.
I can show you by
But-
email. This is all documented.
During your free period, did you ever say to Rob, hey, I'm doing great, let me give you guys some extra fees? Thank you very much.
Who would do that?
Exactly. So you're right, absolutely right. So at some point, Rob has to charge a fee.
I mean,
That sounds like we're complaining about the fee that he charged.
no. The complaint is around whether or not that fee was based on me being on probation, because it started at the same time and ended at the same time. Now, I think it is a great opportunity for not just myself, but a lot of other people to be able to do this at a reduced rate. Whether it was free or or maybe it should be free. If we're able to afford to do that for a period of time, what is the point of these fees? Which begs another question. When I was writing my checks, they were going to Park Spirit. Park Spirit is a nonprofit organization whose interest is in preserving the parks. Up until this year, when we went to bid process, now the fees no longer go to Park Spirit. So the question is, for one, where's that money going? I applied for a grant from Park Spirit, and they never responded to that grant to have my festival at the park. So that's another can of worms. Where are these fees going? And if there was a level of fees being, whether it be $500, $1,000, or $1,500, that was never defined before. So during this period of me, while the park is also checking me out, I'm also checking out the operation of the park. I was able to operate with no issues, except for the one complaint about my price at that point in time. But then I have questions about where's money going. And at what level?
$10 a day rent.
Huh?
It's going to $10 a day rent to run a business.
Wait, no. So, no. Once the fee was paid to the organization of Park Spirit, what was that money used for? And I'm not saying the fee for me to operate. Okay, especially as I applied for a grant from Park Spirit, I never got an answer back from that grant that I applied for. I reached out to Mr. Miller several times by email, by phone. We had several conversations. But then when I started asking certain questions, the call stopped being picked up. Again, when I made the city manager aware that there was no rate schedule, we went to a bid process. So there's a lot of questionable things that I've experienced since I've been a vendor here at M Park in particular.
So the original question here, and I'm just going to ask it yes or no this time, or is it written where those fees, is it written that those fees might be charged? My question was originally where. I understand you guys may not be capable of answering that. Yes or no, is it written anywhere that those fees might be charged?
It's in the application?
Through the chair, it is as part of the bid package.
Okay.
Okay, but so someone who, prior to the bid, switching to a prohibitive bid package this year would never have been informed about that ahead of time before being assessed those probationary, right, probationary periods. Are those disclosed to vendors now, at least?
Those are done through precedent through the Parks Commission if complaints come in.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by precedent?
The Parks Commission has held precedent that they will address particular issues that come to the attention of the department or of the commission and address those with vendors, with permit holders, with events of issues that may be causing concern for neighborhoods or our residents.
So
So
it
the
sounds like
current-
precedent is simply doing something because it was done before. I'm kind of asking what established doing this practice in the first place, and more importantly, was it disclosed to the people subject to it?
So in the rules and regulations document, it says that vendors and concessioners who do not abide, failure to follow all ordinances, rules, and regulations may result in fines and could have their vending/concession permit revoked. Probation, to me, seems like a
So this goes
middle
under the
ground
catch-all of
sorts.
fines.
So this is in the rules and regulations document for,
I have said for a while that that document effectively functions as a we can do what we want and it says so here. And this, I believe, demonstrates that. But yes, it is now written somewhere. Do you want to read in my next item?
this is, I think we skipped one. What role does the Parks Department take in ensuring that the unhoused community of Worcester cannot remain in one place?
Yes, so I actually have a few series of questions there, but if you look through your packets, you'll see some emails between the, Scott Moran and the Quality of Life Division discussing the practice of identifying where unhoused encampments are for the purpose of clearing them. You'll also find in your packets a photo of a printed sign that was left December 26th last year outside of encampment that's signed from the Parks Department informing them that they need to leave and recommending they go to a shelter. Acknowledging that there is absolutely a role, my question is, what role does the Parks Department take in ensuring that the unhoused community of Worcester cannot remain in one place?
Through the chair, City of Worcester Parks Department is a cleanup agency, very similar to ServPro, cleaning up hazardous waste from an encampment once Quality of Life has told us that we can go in and clean up.
There is no, I don't want to use the word hunting here, but there's no searching or reporting aspect of this job?
The City of Worcester Parks is a cleanup agency like ServPro that goes in and cleans up a park facility, no different than illegal dumping or others, after Quality of Life tells us we can go in.
I mean, there's obviously, as you can see through the emails in your packet, some coordination prior to Quality of Life going in. Would you elaborate on what's involved in that?
City of Worcester Parks Department does receive information and lets Quality of Life know that there is an encampment or there is individuals within a public park. We forward that to Quality of Life. They take care of all the logistics. They call us when they're ready to clean up.
So why is that, that notice was signed from the Parks Department? Was that left there by the Parks Department or Quality of Life?
That was left by Quality of Life.
They signed it by the Parks Department? Are they authorized to sign themselves as you guys?
They left it. It's Quality of Life leaves it because it's on park property.
So they have left other ones signed police. Do you know if there's any reason they signed it parks once and then police next time?
I do not have any information on that. You'd have to talk to police or the other agencies.
Okay, you want to read in the next one? I think that's the last one.
Backing up on this,
Sure.
the parks do close at 10.
I understand.
Okay.
So, I mean, well, that being said, the whole, it's a bit of an Eighth Amendment thing to not allow camping. It criminalizes existing, since they have to sleep at some point, and I understand that's not your problem.
Yep.
But being closed at 10 and helping identify where they are for the purpose of making sure they can't stay there and can't survive where they are two very separate things. But yes, I'm aware that the parks close at 10. We've been over that earlier tonight.
Okay, so the next item is request of David Webb to speak to the commission on, I am seeking clarification on requirements to submit an item, as there was ambiguity at the January meeting created when Commissioner Chacharoni expressed interest in a response requirement for emailed item
So
submission.
this is from last meeting when we discussed Geoff Killebrew sending a request in and it not being accepted, and Assistant Commissioner of Parks Antonelli telling him we did not know that you wanted to be on the agenda, despite the fact that there was a very clear interest. As you can see, this person is not indirect. There was a very clear email, direct, I would like to be here, and it had an attachment, and they did ask to resend it in PDF form, which is otherwise unprecedented, as I've confirmed through public records requests. And so what I'm trying to confirm, to make it really easy so that people don't have the issue of trying to get in here for years and not being able to because of one technicality or another, is finally put to rest what is actually required without any ambiguity. So I believe it requires A, at least 72 hours advance notice, which is B, via email. C, to parks@worcestermass.gov with the subject of agenda item. And then the most important requirement, which was left vague last time, is we have to reply satisfactory to any follow-up requests sent by the Parks Commission. So my questions, first and foremost, is one, is this accurate? If not, which letter is inaccurate? Which letter is not a submission requirement?
Madam Chair? So A is not correct. It is 3 business days. It is not 72 hours. It is 3 business days. Number 2, Mr. Killebrew did receive an email asking him to communicate with us regarding the document that we could not open. The same issue actually occurred with Mr. Webb, where Mr. Webb asked for something.
Actually, I sent the PDF that same email and it was
him.
accepted.
I sent it to him in a format that, as he writes, he couldn't open. So when he sent that back to me, I changed the format and resent it to him. So easy communication, back and forth, would have solved Mr. Killebrew's problem. That's one.
So to be clear.
So B is yes, C is yes, and D is yes.
Okay, so to clarify, the same meeting when Geoff Killebrew's PDF submission was not accepted, my PDF submission was accepted. The situation Assistant Commissioner of Parks Antonelli Jr. Is referring to was very specifically not about an agenda item, and more importantly, he attached an XML format, something that, as a computer person, I'm not familiar with. It was some Microsoft Exchange export thing. PDF stands for Portable Digital Format and should be able to be opened by anyone. The Parks Commission has office licenses, and as I demonstrated in that meeting and in many others, Melissa Richard has had no issues opening PDFs outside of that one instance. Most importantly, as I said before, there was no ambiguity about whether or not Geoff wanted to be at the meeting. Geoff was present at that meeting and then was not allowed to actually speak on the agenda item. Aaron Zamaro, you specifically told him we cannot talk about things that are not on the agenda. Most of the questions he's had today are on the agenda, and part of what is so frustrating, were submitted then, part of what's so frustrating is you said multiple times, we've only got 2 months, I don't know what you wanted to do. What we want you to do is not create issues for people to submit email agenda items and then make it prohibitive for them to get in front of you until there's no time to actually do anything about it. Like, this isn't Geoff's fault that there's only 2 months left. Geoff's tried to do this in, well, my first meeting, which at this point was about half a year ago.
Madam Chair, again, a simple response to a simple email
So to
would have,
confirm-
would have solved the problem, and we would not be discussing this item.
Well, no, I mean, that's actually exactly why we're discussing it. To confirm, E is a required essential. Someone will be considered uninterested in being on the agenda if they do not reply satisfactorily to any follow-up requests sent by the Parks Commission?
So he indicated that he wanted to be on the agenda, and this happened months ago now, so I may not get every detail right. Someone said, "I can't open your attachment. Please resend it," but I'm not going to follow.
There will be no further reply to this email was one of the things. But they also
I believe
did not
it said-
actually say, "I cannot open it." They specifically said to resend it in PDF. I've read this email multiple times. In fact, when Geoff said, "I'm not on the agenda," I looked at the email and I pointed to him and said, "That's how they got you." Because I saw that he attached a Word document and they said, "Please send it in PDF." Sorry, he attached a PDF and they asked for him to resend it in Word, which is, like I said, PDF is portable digital format. It's supposed to be read by anything. That's the whole point of PDF. The fact that you guys are receiving it and reversing it, flipping around in your agendas is actually a whole separate, like there are technical issues here. And more importantly, it took months of going back and forth to identify whether or not this was a user issue or a software issue. It sounds like it was an isolated single instance that only happened to Geoff Killebrew, and I have confirmed that with 100% certainty through public records. So more importantly, I just want to confirm, yes or no, it is a requirement to reply satisfactory to any follow-up requests sent by the Parks Commission.
I call it common courtesy.
I'm asking if it's a requirement. This is not a common courtesy thing. This is a law thing. This is an access thing. This is you guys are saying no based on discretionary things, leaving yourself any excuse you can. It's not enough to say 72 hours. It's not enough to require someone type your specific subject. It's not enough to only accept it through email. You guys have to also, like, people have to respond to you? Showing up isn't enough. So just to be clear, yes or no, since no one seems willing to actually answer this, through the chair, is replying satisfactory to any follow-up requests sent by the Parks Commission a requirement for emailed item submissions?
Through the chair, if I may. I just, I'm thinking through this some. I feel like there's a bit of ambiguity this only because I can foresee an instance where someone says, I have an agenda item, but to the person reading it, because, conversation's two-sided, the person reading it, it may be unclear, like, what is it you want on the agenda? In which case, then there does have to be a conversation there. And part of that, I'm thinking, is in terms of open meeting requirements, we have to be able to write an agenda. So I think it's difficult to say yes or no to this because of this being a conversation. So it's a factor of I can foresee instances where without someone confirming something or responding to something, it's unclear what they put on the agenda, and then the question becomes, what do? You kind of can't leave it open of like they want to just speak to the commission and leave it blank. To my knowledge,
I have seen ones in the past when it wouldn't be really beneficial to the commission to put what I actually asked to speak about on here. They will paraphrase it differently. This is something the commission is very capable of doing.
And that may be the case, and please correct me if I'm wrong, one of my fellow commissioners or Mr. Antonelli. It may be that maybe this, things could be paraphrased in a different way, or maybe that we say, if you want to speak, we need at least, one, maybe have a requirement that does say, we need at least one sentence that says, what is the topic, so that at the very least that can be on there. Because I am foreseeing an issue of, how do we handle that while still complying with our requirements for the open record requests. But I can foresee too of, if, for Mr. Killebrew, if you want to speak to us, I certainly, at least I know, I want to hear from you or anyone else. And so if something comes up, I would want to hear what it is and what's it about.
The issue was that it wasn't the first time that we had a conversation through email. What happened was the tone. If we're going to talk about tone and common courtesy, the phrase "there will not be another communication regarding this matter" was completely a put off. That lets me know right there that I can't really trust what's going to go forward. If I can't be comfortable enough to ask further questions, then like where are we headed? Again, with my experience being that with, I've tried to be, I've requested to be on the agenda. I've gone through this probationary thing before. I've had questions that weren't being answered. So now you're telling me that there's going to be no further communication. This just seems completely, for lack of better words, confrontational. You know, or as there is no going back. I mean, the customer service just was not there. If that's the case. As a community member who's requesting to be on the board, there will be no further communication after this. It would make a person feel like, hey, you're not welcome.
But I think, Geoff, a lot of it stems from you're on the agenda for 3 months. Now, nobody pulls a random name out of the Worcester Registry of Deeds and puts them on an agenda unless they ask to be on an agenda. You were on the agenda for 3 months before you got tabled. So
Wait a minute, where did you get those dates from?
approximately 3 months. I came on the board.
Oh, you're saying from the time of that email until like October?
Last year, in the middle of the year, at some point, you were on the agenda for 3 months, and you were not showing up for each meeting.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
But your name doesn't just magically show up on an agenda. You must have requested to be on the agenda.
Right.
Okay, so you didn't show up for 3 meetings, then you got tabled or filed.
I was not aware that I was supposed to be there because of the no communication. Again, if you're going to say this is the last communication that you're going to receive, don't expect anything else from us. Then if there's no communication to let me know that I should be here, then that's not on me. Did
you ask to be on the agenda?
Yes, I did.
And you're saying you sent an email in and nothing came back after?
After that communication, there will be no further communication.
No, not that email. I'm saying
He's picking at the first time. He's trying to say justify the not putting you on the agenda later because of the first 3 times. He's trying to set you up to say.
I'm not trying to set you up for anything. I'm just trying to say a series of events that happened. You were on an agenda for 3 months and you did not show up. I don't know what the reason was. If you had family issues, I don't know what it was.
I was not informed is the point.
But again, you sent in a request to be on the agenda. We didn't magically pull a name out and put you on the agenda. So if you sent in a request to be on the agenda, there had to be some sort of follow-up, something.
There was no follow-up.
You're saying you sent an email and it said, I'd like to be on the agenda, and it just died?
Yes, sir. And so anything that I'm talking about, I can show you by email. The only reason why I'm standing here in the suit is because I have proof of anything that I'm talking about by email. Everything that I'm suggesting is documented, and that's why I have 10 pages worth of documentation of my experience and my questions.
Through the chair, to Mr. Antonelli, for someone who typically has requested to be on the agenda, is there communication from the department that says you're on the agenda for XYZ date or time? And I ask partially because my thought process on this is somewhat that we meet roughly once a month. The agenda is made public, generally speaking, should be up. I think it's 48 hours prior to the meeting.
Yep.
And that's publicly available. I'm just trying to sort of determine, is it something where it is common practice that we do respond saying you are on the agenda, or is it common that someone asks and we just, if we have everything, we put them on?
So usually what ends up happening, we've gone the other route where if they've asked to be on, we put them on. We don't chase them down to say that you're on there. We have changed that as we've moved along here due to this particular issue. Both Mr. Webb and Mr. Killebrew we acknowledged that we received their request and that they're on the agenda. So we've done that side of it now to try to alleviate any of these concerns.
So through the chair, so it sounds like at least, in terms of moving forward, it is something where the department is sort of proactively responding, letting people know you have been placed on the agenda.
Yes, unless the commission tells them that they're going to be on the next agenda. Sometimes if it's old business, we're not chasing that back all the time, but on new business, yes, we've started that process to try to streamline that piece of it so that this stuff doesn't happen.
So from the constituent end of things, I can definitely say they have, as of more recently, been confirming, 3 days before, you'll get a generic, you are now on the agenda, here's the date. It is a huge improvement. It is definitely not something they were doing consistently last year. And as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't, some things were on the agenda differently than I had submitted them. Some things that I had tried to submit were not on the agenda, which is part of why they clarified these rules. So previously, no, there was no formal procedural thing, and I can say that because sometimes I got confirmation, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I would get confirmation directly from Assistant Commissioner Antonelli, other times it would be from M. Richford, other times it would be from the Parks emails. So it seemed to be pretty inconsistent. I just kind of want to bring this back and say yes or no. Is a satisfactory reply to any follow-up requests from the Parks Commission a requirement to be on the agenda?
Through the chair, if there's a question on what the request is, then yes. As the commissioners, or as Commissioner Stratton has already pointed out.
Okay, interesting. I think you should definitely add that to the part that is written. It's already 3 or 4 different steps, like you're already making it so anyone who has English as a second language or isn't tech literate might have trouble getting in front of you. So putting as much clarity into the requirements as possible. Additionally, I think there should be a format for you to inform people of that. That is, 1, respectful, 2, makes it absolutely clear that if they do not respond, they will not be on the agenda. Not just saying there will not be a follow-up to this email. And frankly, if someone sends an agenda with a subject that says they should be on there, the default of putting them on the agenda would ensure that you didn't ever rob someone of their opportunity to speak in front of you, because that does add up and does end up creating lots of questions after months and months and months of that. So was this, other than on the agendas since January, effectively someone wanted to know that this is the new way the Parks Commission does that, are they just going to find out when they submit it 2 days late and are told they have to be on the next agenda, or is it said anywhere other than, this agenda and the past ones from this year?
This change was approved by the Parks Commission on December 21st as part of the rules and regulations.
So was it announced, sorry, the question was this publicized, published, or announced anywhere other than the January Parks Commission agenda? And I'm going to add to that question, of course, also the February Parks agenda.
It was approved by the Parks Commission on December 21st, 2023, as part of the rules and regulation changes that we made and updates that we made.
So no, this was not publicized, published, or announced anywhere other than that?
It was published on 12/21/23 as part of the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting in the rules and regulations as a change, and it became effective for the January meeting.
Interesting. So just out of curiosity, does anyone actually pay attention to that other than you guys?
Through the chair. So I get where you're going. Why not just say, hey, Mr. Antonelli, would it be beneficial to post it here?
We don't get direct answers from Antonelli.
Well, why not just, I feel for you, because for years, we used to have a commissioner, Meg Mulhern. She ended every meeting with, can we have a Facebook page? Which you can't do it, city governing, whatever, but it was for that reason alone. I understand what you're saying, and your methodology, I don't agree with.
No one does, but it doesn't make
why
me
not
wrong.
why not just come up with recommendations, say, why can't we post things here? Why can't we post things here, as opposed to just asking it the way you're asking?
Outlining how prohibitive it is and how disinterested in it, because frankly, if you guys would just say no, whereas when we go about this way, you guys see we see that the direction your thought process goes is actively looking for reasons to say no, not ways to do it.
I literally just took a thought process of ways to do it.
I appreciate that you
literally,
have in this instance.
I'm just trying, like I was trying to help Mr. Killebrew think outside the box in the storage. We're not trying to prohibit things. It's you come at us with a chainsaw.
We don't, well, so I understand you might not be trying to prohibit anything, but if you just keep doing things the way you are, it is prohibitive. That's what we've been trying to explain to you.
Understood.
So to change that, we have to actively say, well, this is actually bad.
So offer a solution on where to post things. You're the computer guy.
Okay, I'll come back with a list of actual suggestions next
Thank
time,
you.
and then we can go through them.
Okay.
I think that might actually be it. Oh, no, the change to busking earlier, this is the public comment, last thing, actually, I promise. The $50 a week. Geoff had to ask like 3 different ways to get it confirmed that this was in fact a Parks Commission decision and action and responsibility. And so where I'm going with this is I know it is a city council ordinance, but until I think at the same exact time that you added this 72-hour or 3 business day requirement, and Parks agenda item submission, it was also changed. So just to be 100% clear, did the city council request, advise, or ask for it to be $25 a week, or was that entirely a Parks thing?
There was no request by the city council.
Okay. So why was that implemented? There hasn't been a fee for busking in the past 30 years. Why is there now?
As a permit fee, as part of the ordinance with the requirement for the Parks Commission to approve those, we implemented a fee.
But hasn't that ordinance existed for a significant amount of time?
But we changed, I mean, in the sports permit, we added a tournament. I mean, things change.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. You asked me
Things
what should be, your website, we just watched, Scott Moran? I don't.
Or Geoff.
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 Tomiano. Yeah.
We just watched Geoff do a presentation on how easy it is to do the baseball process. You go to the website, you click here, you do here. The Parks and Rec has a really good, here's our policies, where it's got a lot of good stuff for special vendors, and you've been adding stuff for them. Special events, not vendors. But vendors, if you go there, there is absolutely nil other than the vendor application. You guys could have a frequently asked questions, you could have policies, you could tell people in advance that they might be charged $50 a week for probation once they start making money or if anyone complains. You've got a place to put all of this information. It just doesn't exist, and the only way we've actually gotten this information seems to be in the form of being told it is now more expensive and more difficult, and here's the information. And when I say we, I really mean Geoff.
Again, extremely valid point. You are very good with the written word. Why not come back with, hey, Commission, here's some frequently asked questions. Would you mind putting this on the website? Why not?
Because you guys have been ignoring Geoff with that for years. But
Again,
we'll come back next time with actual instruction, with actual requests.
recommendations, yes.
And if I may, just, as a point of clarification, I certainly, at least, I don't feel like I've ignored Geoff. I certainly, and I, my fellow commissioners as well, like a lot of us are new, so some of it too is, we're volunteers, we're sort of doing our best here. None of us are certainly experts on this.
So I don't know.
But I do appreciate, David, the input, because I agree with you, you're pointing out stuff that frankly I do in a lot of my work too, where, hey, we need to clarify a process, or we need to, add an FAQ, or try and make this easier. So I think that, as my, fellow commissioner said, that, certainly, we're, at least I feel like, we are open to the feedback on this, because if we can make the process easier for people, I'm all for it, because that ideally also makes it easier for the park staff and for the commissioners, so we can all kind of hopefully get more done. So, at least from my end, I certainly look forward to seeing any recommendations that you have in terms of ways to improve upon the process. I think that at least for some of this, as was also mentioned, some of these may change, and I think that, tonight it was great. We had a full room, we ran out of chairs. I would love to see that every time we meet.
That's why I've been trying to make this entertaining.
But as far as that goes, there's certainly a factor of, when, tonight it is somewhat disheartening when people are complaining about changes in fees or increases in fees. If I remember correctly, I think a lot of those fees hadn't increased since 2017. And if I may, just for that, we had a meeting in December, and no one.
There were 3 people there.
Yeah. I mean, which is, it's frustrating, hey, we're doing our best. No one showed up, and then everyone shows up afterwards to complain.
So that's the
which
other.
I think too, again, as mentioned earlier in the meeting, I think we're open to input and revising things if we get feedback.
So you should be more than open to input and encourage and input. So when you guys ask for there's a publicized amount of days when you're renaming a park or whatever, but there's this mandatory meeting and then the next mandatory, the February one, that frankly having mandatory meetings that people could have received in an email is a whole different thing. But where I'm going with this is, You could publicize if you care about this, if you want to be involved in this, if you want to have a say in this, show up at this meeting. I was at that meeting and I had the agenda in front of me and I wasn't even 100% sure that that's what was about. Like, I watched you guys vote on that, realized it was about to get more prohibitive and didn't even, in fact, I think, anyways, people don't know about that. And you guys publicize other things, you guys mandate other things. If you actually wanted it to be a more community-involved process, that wouldn't be that hard to do. So I guess that's where I should leave it as far as recommendations is these things that are important for the constituents that affect all of them. I would like for this to be publicized in advance. You should let everyone know if you care about special event fees, if you care about vending, if you care about busking. Come in December. You let everyone know to come today and come next time for their specific sports things. We could do the same thing here.
A lot of the people here are on, because they had permits last year, so they get the mailing list. But the reason why Rob does this, as crazy as it sounds, because we have a certain, I didn't get the email. Well,
I know.
That's all, unfortunately, we have to do this, have an extra 2 meetings, but, I didn't get the email. That's the famous.
But you don't. If it's written, you can make people sign contracts and then enforce it. I understand that people don't actually read it and then they're still upset with you when you say, well, I wrote it here. But having a mandatory meeting, let me put it this way. You have mandatory meetings to talk to them, but they came here to be heard and they don't know that process. No one knows when, and that's what I'm trying to say, is if everyone knew, if you want something to change in the Parks Department, here's how to do it, like Mr. Killebrew was trying to make happen, then more people would do it. But no, they came here because they had to come. They said, well, I want to talk about these things, and they were told they can't tonight because it wasn't on the agenda, which I understand they can't, but they're coming here because they have to, and they don't have time to come back. They don't want to really have to come back to do it. They just want you guys to design it in a way that actually makes sense for them to use it, rather than in a way that makes it easy for you guys to run it.
Okay.
Thank you for your time tonight. I'm gonna get do you have anything else? Yeah, one second.
No, if anything, the last thing is, and as I'm through this Worcester Renaissance project, is I am suggesting some remedies to the challenges that that I've experienced, and I know that I'm not the only one. The reason why we had the special event, community input session in November, as well as the survey that went out earlier this summer, was because of some of the awareness I had been bringing at City Hall through the Cultural Development Department. So I'm looking to collaborate with the Parks Department on how to actually simplify some of the application process to become a street vendor, to become a street performer, to look at some of these rules and regulations that make it prohibitive, as has been not only my experience, but the reason why we don't get a lot of attendance and participation in some of these processes. So looking for, again, I'll leave it at that. If I can be placed on, make another request to be on the next agenda, and I'll look at some more of these questions that I have here to ask, and maybe that will give you more time to be able to give answers, have them in hand before the meeting, and we maybe move it along a little bit fast, move the meeting along faster. And some other things came out tonight, and that David suggested as far as some of the processes too. So, and the other thing is, I'd be willing to show you the email where it says here, that the email in question. So, thank you again for your time.
Through the chair, I guess would it be correct term be tabling the rest of Mr. Killebrew's agenda item to the next meeting of
February
February
29th.
26th or 29th, whatever it might be.
It's at 29th on the agenda.
So I'll make a motion to table the remainder of Mr. Killebrew's agenda items to the next meeting on the 29th.
Second.